Hello, my friends. It's Andy Falco coming to you live from Yorba Linda, California for the Andy Falco Show. And I'm right off the bat, we have Leandra Blades just sitting here right now with us to discuss some things. But I first want to make sure that you know that in the description, we have a few sponsors that would be great if you would visit their websites. One of them is LifeWise. LifeWise is a great supplement program. I use all of the products, but Dream in particular helps me get to sleep. Being a police officer who worked mostly graveyard, my sleep has been forever affected for decades of going to bed at 6 o'clock in the morning and going to work at 6 o'clock in the evening. And so I needed this stuff. Dream is amazing. It's a great product. And plus they have a bunch of others. And then we have StreamYard. That's the platform I'm using right now to go live. If you have anything that you want to talk about to a group of people and maybe even start your own show, use StreamYard. And if you use the URL down there where it says getstreamyardnow.com, that will give our show credit for the referral. So that would be awesome. And the last one, of course, is Resurrect Ministry. That's the ministry that my wife and I have together. And just would like for you to visit the website and then join us on our show, the Living Fearless Devotional. So I want to jump right into this, Leandra, because I know that sometimes when we talk, it can go on for a little bit over an hour. So I just first want to talk about... well, welcome first.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Make sure and speak in the mic too, so people can hear you. But yeah, you can put it wherever you want.
I kind of always sit awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, I can barely hear you at the school board meetings too. I always want to say, Leandra, speaking in the mic. Yeah, that's right. You got some.
I just sit soft spoken.
Yes. Oh, yes. But just really quick, I want to say that at the last school board meeting that I spoke at, well, first of all, when I stood up and went to speak, everybody left the room. Did you remember that? Yeah, the families of all the people that got hired. You know, usually they don't stick around. Okay. It coincided with me standing up.
I didn't think there was like a protest.
No.
Okay, good. I got it. Like, how did I miss that?
No, but I look back, I go, hey, where's everybody going? But no, it's just the families of the people that got hired. So it was okay. But I really had some other things I wanted to talk about. But sitting there in the audience, seeing the diversity of the superintendents that are now on the board, your face and Sean and Todd, we'll forget the other two, was, I don't know, it felt like Christmas that opened up the Christmas gift I've been looking for years. I'm getting sappy. Hold on. I got to hold on. For 3 years, you and a bunch of parents in the community and even teachers who stop me at Costco or wherever I am just have been working so hard to get to a place where we felt we had competent people in the superintendent positions throughout, competent school board members, and then other people, coaches and teachers and that kind of stuff to teach education, teach kids how to read, write, count, how to think. And I did not think that we would ever get there. But it was sitting there in that school board meeting that I was looking out and listening to the people that were being hired. I think we had 3 or 4 people. I can't remember how many people that you guys were welcoming to the school district. I was just struck with how great God is and how great the persistence of parents who care about their kids really can make a difference. And so I want to thank you guys for what it is you do.
Well,
and
it's just about doing the right thing. And like you've been talking about the diversity or the hiring and the diversity. I mean, that's how it should be. It should be about merit. I was always talking to people and they'd ask, like what our hiring is like. And honestly, like before this past year, I would say before 2023, I'd say it was a homeboy hookup is what I called it. Because I think people were being put in place because of friendships. A lot of it was about relationships, but it wasn't about like, are you the best person? Like we have some good people, but were they in the best places? And so I think that was one thing that we really looked at. And I think too, hiring the new superintendent, first of all, getting rid of that Atkinson law firm, and then, hiring a new law firm that actually works with the board. I mean, I don't think anybody knows how terrible it was with Atkinson. Like you literally could not pick up the phone and call the attorney and ask a question. The superintendent requested to be on the phone call with you, listening in. So it was like a 3-way call. And, or if you had a question, they would call for you. Versus now it's like you pick up the phone, ask a question. Hey, how does this work? And so you have a lot of leeway since going to Orbach, Cuff, and Henderson. And then 2, the superintendent search firm we use, Hazard, Young, and Hedieh, they were just phenomenal. And they did a confidential search, which means that no names, no, races, no gender, nothing. All we knew was this like outline of what the accomplishments were, where they went to school. We didn't know what school district they were in. We didn't know any of that. It was just basically like you just had these outstanding resumes and you said, okay, we want to interview these people. So when they walked in the door, it was a complete surprise. And then now look at what we have. We have an amazing superintendent who has brought on an amazing superintendent of HR. I mean, you can't get better than Isaac Gates. Phenomenal. Olivia Young as our assistant superintendent of ed services. She's killing it.
She comes from in-house.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And then, we have the new finance guy Stein. And then we have, Richard McAlendon is our original person. But it's a great team. And I think what is really emphasized here is team. It is a team. It is not, we're going to go this way. Even though the board would like us to go this way, we're going to go this way.
Right.
And so I think what I told you, I took some notes because I think it's very important to share what is actually going on in our district. I mean, and Dr. Chernus has been here since May, and we're in August. And he has accomplished more in these few months than I've seen in years. And it's just, you sit there and you request interventions, you request this, how are we going to get these scores up? And nobody says anything. There's no plan. So our focus for the next school year is we are getting students up to grade level. How are we getting students up to grade level?
How unique in the United States of America that we have that.
I know that we have to even say that we have to do this.
To grade level.
Yes, to grade level. So we have interventions that we're doing, and it's going to be after school, and then also too, like in our middle school. And I don't think it applies to high school. It might, but middle school. You're going to have interventions as an elective. If you are behind in your math or English, then there's going to be, I'm sorry that you can't take a photo class, but we need you to succeed in math and English.
Right.
We need you to be at grade level. We are having foundation math curriculum supplementation. So if you're not there in these interventions, like you may not be doing what your classwork, if you go to an intervention, you may not be doing what you studied in class, but you might be going back to the basics because you don't know your timetables.
Right.
We have a diploma program for special needs students. We have outdoor science camps for all kids throughout the district. It's not a select school anymore, and only certain schools do it. Wow. So if we're really going to talk about equity, which is everybody's preaching equity, and this is true equity. Right here, this is true equity that we're seeing.
Absolutely.
He got rid of the combo classes for grades 5th and 6th.
The what classes?
Combo classes.
Okay.
So when kids are 5th and 6th graders, they're all in a class together. It's not an efficient model. It does not help the kids. It has been basically proven to be an inefficient. And so he looked at it. The principal says, we've been asking for years for this to go. And he says, it's done. It's gone.
I recall that there was a classroom or a situation where they had stuffed a couple different classes in the same room and then put up a little divider.
That was at Travis Ranch, and the walls are being built at Travis Ranch.
Oh, that's nice. Build those walls.
Build the wall, baby. We're going to have SRO at all of our high schools.
Fantastic.
And then we're also expanding parent engagement through our superintendent advisory committees, which are going to be held on Zoom. And it's going to be elementary level, middle school level, high school level, and special education.
Wow.
And so here we are. What is it? 4 months?
4 months, yep.
4 months. And we have all of this going on. And so I couldn't be more proud, and I couldn't be more happy with who we hired. And, it's kind of, he made these promises, he said in his interview, because the way to, it wasn't a normal interview process. It was, normally in some of these interviews, they want you to just ask like 20 questions and everybody jumps around and asks the same question. No, he had to do a strategic, all the applicants had to give a strategic, review of what they would do for the school and how they could fix it or what they need to do. So he came in and he showed all of our, every way that we weren't inefficient and what our scores were. And he says, I can fix this. And I've never believed somebody could fix it more than when he said I can fix this. And so I'm very, very happy, very, very proud. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of our staff. I'm proud of our district. I'm proud of the principals who are writing and saying they have never felt more aligned with the district and never felt like they absolutely know what the goal is. And they've never felt more supported.
Wow.
And so when you get emails like that, when you get emails like that from principals saying, I feel supportive, I feel like I can push my school site forward, And I feel like this is going to be a great year and we're going to educate these kids. For me, that's just a win. That is a huge win.
So fantastic.
Yes.
I remember the first school board meeting where he was sitting up there and Matthews was still up there. And then we had a couple of the superintendents that are no longer with us. And they were going through like, we have this going on. We have this program. And as the parents sitting there going, this makes no sense. I mean, and then the few questions that somebody would ask, they said, well, we don't have the answer to that question, which was a pretty basic question. And the one thing I remember from that meeting is looking at Alex Chernes, a doctor, is his face and just going, what? How do you not know this? You have one job to do. He didn't say that. I could just see it on his face.
Which I would say too, that I think just as from our prior careers.
Yep.
We can look at people's faces and we kind of see what people are thinking or what we think that they're possibly thinking. And yes, I felt the same because I've always sat there and I was just kind of, when I brought things up, it was,
how sweet.
Like that,
bless your soul.
And I was sitting there going,
bless your heart.
Crazy? Am I just, am I crazy? Is this like not happening? Is this normal? And it was normal in that system. Mm-hmm. And we have these systems in education in all these places. And this is just normal. But we have to move outside that system and we have to say, no, this is the new system where we educate kids. And so I think we are there. And, and I mean, I know our scores are going to jump. I know it is. I mean, I just have so much confidence because how can it not with all of the things, the check-ins that, the principals have to do with the parents and families and students and stuff, to make sure that they're there and to getting the principals, to know the students, know who's in your classroom, know who's in your school, just the whole personal thing. It's more like a family, focused, which is what people want. They want to feel like they are a community and that they, that they're kids and,
that they're in good hands.
Yes.
One thing really quick, I want to tell the people that are watching, make sure and comment, let us know what you think. What are the things that you're hoping to see in the upcoming year, or what you want to see out of the new superintendent and some of the other people that are coming on? That would be great. So make sure and comment. When you comment, it pushes out the broadcast to other people so they can see it. So whether you agree with us or not, even if you don't agree with us, I love those. I think I love those the most. But make sure and comment and let us know and share this out so that other people can see what's happening at the school district. We want to get to parental rights in one moment, but I wanted to address one other thing that I've seen and heard through some of the platforms that I visit from time to time. And that is with all the people that have been replaced, removed, they've decided to quit. You have some issues with the teachers union or maybe the school board association that we belong to, that there's a lot of things that are changing, moving, firings and that kind of stuff. And there's people that don't understand what happens when you're trying to fix something, that things have to happen. People have to be fired. People have to be changed and that kind of stuff. Other people believe that it's the school district's on fire because of everything that's being done. What do you want to address? The word on the streets is that, I mean, not from us, but from the other side, is that it's a nightmare.
On fire. I would say, yes, we are on fire.
In a positive way. Yes.
I would say that there's, with any change comes different things. And there's always maybe some people who are naysayers and who say, oh my gosh, because things are not familiar. Mm-hmm. And because people come in and there's different expectations and, what does this mean for me? And so I think people have seen that there's a style of that he has high expectations for teachers, for principals, for his staff, because we are there to educate students. Mm-hmm. So there is that high expectation. And I would say that if you don't want to have that expectation, then this might not be the place for you, which I think it should be in any school district. We should expect a lot from our teachers, to educate the kids. But the whole thing on fire, and I don't think anything's on fire. I think people, you get familiar and, you kind of have this group and this, maybe this clique, and then that's leaving. And so I'm going to go elsewhere so I can kind of stay in my comfort zone here. Or, I don't really know what all the reasons are. I really don't, because I know, like I've said too, and I've even told people I don't understand this. It's sometimes when you have a new police chief, in different You just kind of,
Yes.
and they might give different, objectives, during patrol, or like different directives and all these things. And so you just, okay.
Yep.
And this is
The
what
culture
you do.
changes.
And so
Yep.
you just kind of like move. And so I don't know if people, because his style is so different, he's very direct. He's very efficient. Like when he says it, like we're not saying it, we are doing it. And so I don't know if like people, is that intimidating to people? Do people embrace it? Is that the style? Is that just what people aren't used to? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the reasonings are, but I just know that we have a ton of faith in our district staff, and we have a ton of faith in our superintendent. And we, if people are leaving, then we just have to assume that, they have their personal reasons, whatever it is, but we're going to hire in their places. We're going to hire exceptional people.
Awesome. Love that. Can we go to parental rights?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I would really love to talk about this. We see districts trying this in many different ways, and they're all getting on the news, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Our pastor, Jack Hibbs, led a group of parishioners and supporters up to Sacramento on Monday to talk about parental rights and to address some of the laws that are, being forced through the Democratic leadership we have there. So it's an important one. How is our school district addressing parental rights?
So we haven't had anything put in place. If you look in our policies and our administrative regulations, there's really nothing there yet. And so we've been kind of like looking and watching, because if you do this, you want to do this correctly.
Yep.
So after a lot of like research and a lot of thought, what I have submitted with the help of an absolute genius.
Not me.
No, it wasn't you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
But what I submitted was basically, we have a policy, or if it's going to go on, I don't think it's going to be a board resolution, but essentially what I think is wrong, and I've kind of brought this up, and I hope people aren't upset with me for bringing this up, but the Chino Valley model, I think, does separate some of the groups in the policy, because we as school districts, we have suicide prevention, we have bullying, we have all these policies, and we have the procedures, whether they're working or not. Do people, complain that their kids are being bullied? Yes. But I think what the main thing to come away with is when you look at the policies and when you see all the opposition to each other, it's mainly dealing with LGBTQ issues.
Yep.
It's dealing with the pronouns, and it's dealing with, the use of the different bathrooms and the sports, and it kind of just is all kinds of different things. But my thing is this, is if we want parental rights and parental notification, why are we just notifying for that? Or, because suicides, we would go out to schools if somebody was in the 5150 state, gravely disabled, or, we would have to respond. So we have all these things in place. But my concern is that I didn't want to just address a certain group to appear like we're discriminating against a group, because I think that it's just as important to have a policy that is encompassing all students. So like when you have a child that's sitting in your classroom, and they're sitting in the back, and maybe their parent or their grandparent or a sibling or somebody died or somebody's in the hospital, and you see them going like this.
Yep.
Or even the simple thing as breaking up with a boyfriend, and they're like this, or friendship issues, and they're like this. Do we want a teacher not to recognize that, and not to call the parents, and not to bring and address this issue? And so I think that when we say things like this, that there's changes, I don't think that we can only identify certain changes in a certain area with a certain
I see what you're
group.
saying. Yep.
We have to identify it to all students, because we are here to serve all students. And there's no problem that should take precedence or have more importance over one than the other. I am just as concerned about parents knowing, one area as I am the other. If your student is doing poorly and you don't know, do you want that teacher to pick up and say, hey, the last couple of weeks, like there's no homework turned in, is there something going on?
Right.
Do you want to know that? I do.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and what I submitted into President Youngblood. Can't speak today. To President Youngblood. And so I put that in there, that if we are going to have the parental notification, it's all encompassing. And then another section of this too, that I kind of ran through the lawyers and say it was completely legal is we've always been told that if you're age 12 and up, that it's confidential if you go in to see the mental health counselors. Completely fine. I have no issues. I'm not going to argue or fight with that. However, how do you get into that mental health counselor?
Right.
Are you brought in from here and you go in and the teacher or your parents find out later that you went to see the mental health counselor? So I've said that I've asked that we put into place that any student who needs to see a mental health counselor, or if staff or if a teacher believes that they need mental health services, or if a student is asking for it, that we call and we advise the parent and we let the parent make the call. Because if it was me, and they thought he needs to see somebody, okay, great. I know this person,
right.
And I'm going to get him in over here, or my insurance, does this, or somebody has the same issue and I know this person. And so that is the ultimate parent rights right there, is that your child's not funneled straight into this counselor. And I'm not talking about guidance counselors for, but they're funneled right in. And then sometimes you don't even know it. And I think that is kind of at the crux of things, is that's where the notification needs to become. And that's where the parent can be empowered. And also too, that's where you can kind of have the conversation. Because then too, I've also suggested in here that when we have a safety plan, because sometimes when you have, certain types of issues and you want to keep you want to be able to have the child attend school, but you also want to make sure that they're safe while doing so. So bring the parent in, bring the the teacher too, bring the staff in, bring, everybody in, and everybody can sit there and work as a team. And I think what these policies are doing is, well, I have heard and I have seen, that there's a few select teachers that have been doing things. I think our teachers are really there for the kids. And so I don't want to further divide staff, teachers, parents, and kids when we can all be in there together as a team. And so I think that a safety plan or whatever you can map out, you map it out together, you work as a team. And then through that, there's trust that's built. And there's, camaraderie, there's, collaboration.
Well, I've seen this, I believe, if I understand what you're saying, this model in practice at Brookhaven Elementary, where my son, there was just a question about his cognitive abilities and some other things that were going on. He had gotten in trouble by saying something inappropriate, which I support him getting in trouble for that, because he gets in trouble for saying inappropriate things when he does that here, which it's been a long time. But because we wanted to, because their mother thought there was something else that might be going on, it was a team of people. You had the counselor for the school, you had the teacher's input, a couple different teachers' input. You had another person that I believe her job is to go from school to school to school. She's not assigned to one teacher or one school. She's I don't know, she's not a psychiatrist, but maybe a psychologist of some sort. And with all those people equally taking a part in determining, my son's abilities to learn and that kind of stuff. And in the end, we all sat down together, all the parents, because there's 3 of us, and listened to the breakdown of what happened. And we came to a conclusion that he's perfectly fine. Which is fantastic. Right. But I was really great. I was a little worried at first, but I love that. I love that we had and I know we can't do that for how many kids we have, 8,000 students. But when there's a crisis of some sort, and there needs to be crisis intervention, that there should be a couple people involved. Because what we do find, and I think we've heard enough of, is that you can have this one particular person, whoever that might be, that's a little not in line with, the family and their beliefs and that kind of stuff. So is that kind of the idea, is that there's a number of different people that you can count on that will kind of look at the situation and then meet and then make a determination.
I mean, a lot of times if it's the teacher who contacts the parent, or if the teacher, contacts, office personnel, and then, they make the notifications to the parents and stuff, and then you can come in. And so before your child actually sees a counselor, you have that option to be able to say, yes, go ahead and see this school counselor, or I'd rather take them to my own, which I think is the ultimate parental rights. But then even too, there's certain situations on the schools too, where, some type of behavior, maybe it's maybe we need a safety plan. Maybe we need certain things like this. But I think when everybody's on the same page and you have goals and there's expectations and there's accountability, like that's where it all comes in. And so my concern was that it was written really glaringly towards a certain group. And my thing is that we're elected to represent all. We're not elected to play politics and to go after a certain group or certain party or whatever this is. And so what I've started to ask people who are, as we talk about this, I said, so these are important issues for parents, but what we also don't need to lose track of is, what are you doing to help these students succeed? What monies are you trying to get into the sports programs? What money are you trying to get back into the arts? What are you doing, like, as far as interventions go? What are you doing to help in the classroom? What are we doing here? Because I feel like people are starting to lose sight because it's gotten so political. What were you actually elected to do? And is the things you're doing, how is that helping the kids today?
Yep.
Is that helping a kid today? What have you done today that's helped a kid? Yes, these issues are important for parents and they do need to be heard. But I think too, I'm tired of the divisiveness between everything, because I will say that most of the teachers, if like one of the kids one time was like the grades, and it was like a little bit after COVID and stuff, they were kind of back in, and the grades were a little off, and it was different for him. And so, yes, we went on Zoom, all 5 or 6 of the teachers, everybody was on there. And it was just like, oh, we think it's this, this, and this. Okay, perfect. Let's try this. We were all the same. So I've always had good, interactions with teachers who want to do well for the kids. And so I feel like if we're there, if we can get there and we stop the divide, because that's what this is. Like, I attended the California Association of Black School Educators conference in Napa a month or two ago. And immediately, like, when I was identified as a Republican, I was told that I was going to turn all of public schools into a charter school, and I wanted this and this. And so they were shocked when I said, no, we've actually turned down 2 charter schools. And
what?
They said, what? And then so we started talking. And so we were all on the exact same page. It was everybody at the table. We all believed in parental rights. We all believed that if things like this are happening, or kids are making these type of personal statements, that the parents wanted to know about it. We were all on board with each other. But you know what? It's these entities, the media, and even our political parties that are, that are doing this. And so the conversations need to happen. And I feel like the more conversations that we can have and the more that we talk to each other, like, we will probably learn to trust each other a little bit more, because we're going to put, these practices into action.
Well, there's some aspect of that sometimes the parents are there, then they're doing a good job, but they're working. And the only way they're going to find out is if they get a call from the school that, I didn't know that because when I see them at home, they're all happy.
Right.
But as soon as they leave, they are participating in one thing or another, whatever that may be. Or they may actually be sad or thinking about suicide, but just are too afraid to tell their parents. There are people that say, well, then they're afraid of their parents. No, they don't want to hurt their parents quite often.
They don't want to disappoint. There's so many, I think it's like so many things. There's so many things that we do as kids that we think is going to disappoint our parents.
Right.
And then, like, one situation, could be just as in one kid's mind is, the same in another kid's mind about a certain thing. So I don't think that we can take it away. And I've heard the arguments, well, they might be abused for this. Well, then call the police, because you're a mandated reporter.
Exactly what I was going to say.
That's the whole thing, is like, we can't make this thing and say, oh my gosh, like, well, they're going to be abused at home, or they're going to be this or that. Well, if that's your thought, then call the police.
Yep.
And notify.
There's already been a solution for that.
Yes.
They've been mandatory reporters since 1984 when I started as a police officer, I think, if I remember correctly.
I mean, and remember too, I don't know if you were working in the field at one time, but I mean, I remember walking in and like Child Protective Services was so overwhelmed that they actually, in a tray, it would be in your beat. You'd have something and you had to go interview people to try to get out in front of it, because if it was serious, they were obviously going to roll out. But this was like, hey, this has been sitting there. We need to address this. So like, we would go do it too. So, I mean, they are taking it seriously.
And that's where I remember some of those times where we would contact the parent and they would go and they would turn to their child and say, why didn't you tell me? and they would, I think, sometimes feel like am I that bad? And they would say, no, you work so hard, and I didn't
Yes.
want to bother you with this, or I just didn't know what else to do, but I didn't want to hurt your feelings, or
Yes.
I didn't know if you would accept me. I go, well, if you just would have told me, right? And so I think that happens far more often than the other, and because we know, you and I being in law enforcement know when somebody's abused. You can see it in them. And that's a whole different monster.
Right.
And
I mean,
so,
too, we've had, like calls when people are suicidal because they're not bringing in all A's. And, their parents are upset with them and they're just so stressed. I mean, there's so many different ends of the spectrum where, there's this type of like the way a child feels, and it could be grades, it could be sexual orientation, it could be anything. And so, but, the parents, knowing is half the battle. And then, some of them too, you kind of looked at it and said, like what's really going on here?
Yep.
You got a B,
yeah.
and your parents are like furious. It's not like me. I'd be like, oh my gosh, you got all A's and a B. This is great, versus, So, I mean, there's those difficult situations where you do see the family, like we do know there are families out there that have these high expectations or may not be accepting of this. But I do believe that the majority of the families will try to do right by their children.
So we have to be a little bit concerned, or maybe you have to be a little bit concerned about Sacramento if they do come up with some type of legislation that says that the school is not to notify the parents. How will our district respond, do you think, to something like that?
Well, I think that there's a lot of attorneys who have come forward and say that, they would, definitely, help fight it. And so I think until we get to that point, like we would need, I think it's definitely right now, it's the 12, the one that I'm seeing, the big thing is that it's the 12-year-olds, having the confidentiality when they go in with a counselor and that they don't have to tell the parents what was spoken about. And so they've really pushed that around, and there's just been a lot of, I think, misinformation because I watched the Chino Valley School Board when Tony DeMarco, the attorney, went up there and he basically said everything in this is within the law. And so right now, like you said, like right now, and then if it changes, we're going to have to change with it. And so I don't know how, with all of these parents, I mean, you've seen people up in Sacramento this week, and then now LA is going off with parents right now. I don't see how you can ignore that, because obviously parents want to be involved and their voices are being heard. So I think that the way that, well, at least with this one, the policy I just turned in, I think that is not divisive, because we are talking about all children. It is not a certain group. It's nothing. It is all children. And we're going to look out for all children, the safety and well-being of all children. And then especially to the second one, I think, just as a parent, I think with everything that's going on, in fact, a mom had reached out to me, and she was in Fullerton School District. And I think she went to pick up her child and she was late. And so she says, well, where is she? And they said, oh, she's in with the mental health counselor. And she said, well, what happened? And they said, well, this happened during school hours. We don't have to tell you. So she went to the Fullerton School District, pulled all 3 of her kids out, and now she homeschooled. And so, is that appropriate? Wow. Should that mom had known and been able to say, yes, she can see that counselor, or no, she can see that counselor before she went in? Would that have stopped everything? Would there have been some understanding? And why was there such a cutoff of, no, you don't need to know what's going on in here? Wow. And so I think that there's just certain situations that really panic parents. Sure. And so we just need to put things in place that keep parents calm. No, we're not going to be keeping secrets from you. We're not doing this. We're going to be a team. And this is how, we're going to move forward. So, like I said, I just presented that to President Youngblood. I love that. I don't know when it will get on the agenda, if it will get on the agenda. But that was just my thought as I read it. I just don't, you just see these school boards that are just, I mean, you've seen ours. Ours has been very divisive as well. Yep. But not like those others. Yeah. And that is, and it's could that policy have been manipulated to fit everybody? Right. Nobody's issues are great, I mean, because really talked about some certain groups, but did we talk about, Sally in the back who just lost her mom and is sliding? They're getting lost. Yeah, they're lost. Yep. And the teacher doesn't have to report, or, but we're going to report on this, and this, because whatever reason. Yeah. Wow.
I love that.
Well, good. I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about this and trying to like get it into action, for a little while, but I just didn't want to, sometimes you jump, like everybody kind of jumps on,
Yeah.
like, oh, this is the thing. Let's just put this through right away. I think that this one really needed to be thoughtful and well thought out and not political in any sense.
I think that's good law enforcement trainings. When sometimes you get to a scene, sometimes you have to act quickly.
Yes.
But there's other times where you have to say, let's hold off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on a case right now where if they just would have waited, it would have resolved itself.
Yeah.
And instead they jumped in and
right.
the person involved in the thing nearly died.
I mean, there's sometimes that, and it's exactly right. There's some days that you had to jump straight in, and then other days, hold on.
Yeah. Nobody's dying.
Yes.
Nothing's on fire. Let's step back.
Put a perimeter up.
Right.
Perimeter up. Let me think.
Right. That's exactly.
Yeah.
I'll show you the video. But it was like, what? Why did you do that? There was no reason to do what you did at that moment. Same thing with this. There's enough happening around the world, enough happening in our school that needed to be addressed very quickly. And I love that. I love that waiting and evaluating and determining. Wait, there's more than just this one issue.
Yeah. And I think too that's the whole thing is when you are governing in a school district, you have to govern for every student.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we can't, and I think too, some of the way it's written, it is ostracizing a group. And are we here to do that? Do we want somebody to be uncomfortable coming to school thinking that they're this this separate group over here? No, we're serving all.
Yep. Perfect. I hope you don't mind. I want to ask you about the, and I'm not even sure what the name of the organization is, but it's the California School Board Association. Thank you.
I knew you were going to ask me about that.
That is another thing that people have their hair on fire thinking, well, what do you mean? What I love the most, and I wish I could have went back up and spoke again because I was just, they said, we've always been with them and this is what we've always done. And this is where we always have these great things. I said, do you see what's happening in our school? Do you see the grades in our school? Because we've always done something isn't always the right answer. If you look at what's been happening over the years, maybe the answer is maybe we need to get away from the thing we've been doing all the time. So what is this all about, this whole situation and what was voted on in the last school board meeting?
So the California School Board Association is a nonprofit organization and they're a lobbyist firm. And so essentially what is always just done is people you just join because that's just the only organization that's ever been around. And that's just what everybody does. And everybody goes to their trainings in, December of every year. They have a big conference and a bunch of hoopla. I've never been, so I can't really talk about it. But what I really hit on when I first joined is they say, oh, you start, a governance training. And so, it was back during COVID in 2020. So everything was online and I just, you're kind of listening and there was only one way to do things I was looking at. And I would ask and people huh? And so I, and kind of I didn't really think that there was much out of the box thinking. It was everything is just done in a certain way. And, here's these resolutions that we've done and here's these policies that we've done and they're cookie cutter and you just put your school district in and then off you go. And so I would say that I wasn't super impressed with them. And especially too, there was a resolution about mental health and we struck down a paragraph because it basically degraded police officers that they were, responsible for the mental health of some minorities. And I just didn't think it was appropriate to say that because, what was the factual basis? And people did email me their facts, but, a lot of it was from opinion columns. And so I just thought if we're talking about mental health in these students, why are we bringing in another profession to, and because of the police officers in this. And so the CSBA is also deeply tied. They used to give $100,000 a year to the NSBA, and then they're still deeply tied to the NEA. And so we know what the NEA is like and what it's about. And so my question has always been why? And so literally for 3 years, we've been able to get the critical race theory ban, which the CSBA would not have supported. We've been able to do so much, the live streaming, everything that we've been able to accomplish in these 3 years, the hiring of a new superintendent, hiring of all new staff, all of the stuff that's going on, we have been able to do without the CSBA in there. And so my thing is
why do we need them?
Why do we need them? And so too, you go to other training, people say, oh my gosh, she's going to go to this other training. She's going to try to just get you in here. I don't have a backup plan for the CSBA because I don't think that we need the CSBA. In fact, to counteract what I had to screenshot this to be able to kind of report on it. But it actually, too, in the last meeting, I know that they were saying, well, we don't have access to any policies or resolutions. And so our staff has a plan in place to keep our policies updated in lieu of access to CSBA policy updates. Dr. Gates will be attending the regularly scheduled Orange County Personnel Administrators meetings where OC, Department of Education, legal counsel is present and provides legislative updates to those in attendance. Additionally, Richard McLennan spoke to County Counsel, who assured him that our district will always receive relevant policy updates as needed. And then finally, they spoke to David Huff, our attorney, who informed them that his firm sends out policy bulletins to all client districts with any key policy changes. School Services of California, of which we are also a client, also sends out key policy changes to its member districts.
Wow.
So this is, that was a $30,000 price tag, almost $30,000. And then when you go to the conferences, it's probably another $20,000 for everybody to go. But then not only that is in your $30,000, that doesn't include your conferences. So if you look at one, like I was kind of like scrolling through the prices to attend a conference 1-2 day, it could be anywhere between $500 and $4,000. So your admission to this is not covering, like, it's not like, oh, I want to do this training one day, I'm going to click on here and do it. Oh no, that is a price tag. And so you're continuing to just give the money. So then my question is, well, what is this getting? And they said, well, we now have a voice in Sacramento. So this is pay to play. If this is our voice, and do I want CSBA to be our voice?
Speaking for you.
Because I've gone to Sacramento 2 or 3 times and spoken for myself, and I kind of feel like I can speak for myself. But then not only that too, they turned off my email one time because during some of these questions, I would ask them questions that people were asking me about bills that were coming through Sacramento.
Right.
And so they said, we don't feel like you agree with us or appreciate this, so we're just going to turn off your email, which was a breach of contract. So instead of trying to, advocate or look at it both ways, he didn't like the questions I was asking or the responses getting. He didn't want to have a healthy debate about it. And what about this other perspective? It was, we're going to turn off your email. Okay.
Wow.
And so that was one thing where people say, oh, they're here to advocate. I believe, in my opinion, they are there to advocate for one side.
Yep.
And they're not truly, because that whole email incident, I wasn't asking like ridiculous questions. I was asking questions that most parents are asking me. I said, the parents in my district are asking me this. What is the CSBA going to do for this?
And the one side they're advocating for is not in the best interest of children.
Right.
And their education.
They have had a lot of bills that they have supported that goes against parental rights. And so that's another thing is like, we have to sit here and we have to say, like, why are we in this? Is this worth it? And, can you take the money? Like, I've paid for a lot of, the only conference that I ever had paid for me right now has been the one that I went to a couple of months ago. But, I've flown to Sacramento and I've attended a conference. And a lot of these conferences are free conferences. So I just have to pay for my own plane ticket. But, like if you go to other conferences and you get different perspectives and you get to talk to people about how they do it, you're not stuck in like an echo chamber.
Yep.
And, you can kind of think outside the box. And there's a lot of people who've attended the CSBA conferences and they still don't know that you can pull items from the consent calendar. They don't know that you can that you can do some of these things.
They don't know the basic procedures
because it was kind of mind blowing when somebody called and said, I need to get this off. And I said, well, just pull it. You do that? And I was like, and so that's just been, that was eye-opening to me was the amount of money, and then it just paid play. So
are we out?
We're out.
All right.
We're out.
Nice.
We're out.
Love that.
Yes.
I'm going to start my own school board organization.
Well, there's people trying, I think. But I think too, the one thing about this is when the CSBA, they're tied to a lot of like the traditional, like the Atkinson, Amundsen, Loya, Rudd, Romo. And so, like even you just find that people just accept, like we'd been with them since 1984. And that was our attorney forever. And this is what, you couldn't have a conversation, without, the superintendent on the phone, or they had to ask the question for you. So you had no access to that. You don't know if what their response is actually the response, or is it tailored to just make you settle down a little bit? Oh no, we can't do this.
Yep.
And so I would say too, is that a lot of our superintendent searches for LSASSR came from Atkinson. And, so isn't that a little bit of a conflict of interest? We're using
Just a touch.
Atkinson's search firm to find superintendents to place them in the school district. And then they turn around, El Sasser would turn around and hire the people who found him or helped get him this job and give them professional development training.
Yep.
And then Mike Matthews, who was our interim, who was the only person available, according to Education Sports Services, who I did not know until a couple months after the Mike Matthews hire, that they are actually Atkinson. He was a consultant for that law firm. And so when I was trying to get rid of Atkinson, he told me I could not do that because they have relationships with Atkinson. And I said, well, what kind of relationship? And so then, I was getting blocked every way, shape, and form to get a new attorney. And so when I sit here and like when we talk about this stuff, we have to start really looking at who the CSBA is. Who are these law firms? And are their hiring practices, are they appropriate? Yep. Because I asked for the billing cycles, and I said, let me have the billing cycles for Education Sports Services, who put 2 of our last superintendents in. And no, we billed Atkinson directly. There's such a huge conflict of interest, especially hiring an employee of Atkinson.
It's a form of nepotism.
It's a form of something.
Where they just keep hiring the same people, and then they move, and then they all just kind of end up all back together again. Yes. Is that not happening in Claremont?
I believe so.
Yep.
I believe so.
And I feel bad for you over there in Claremont. The people you just hired, not good.
Well, I think too. I think it's just doing the digging. I don't think anybody's actually looked at these companies. And the whole thing too is nobody ever told us Education Sports Services when they were doing. We didn't get to be on the search for El Sasser. They did that like a week or two before we were sworn into office, but we didn't get in on that search. And so it wasn't until Matthews came around, and we didn't know they were tied. We figured they were just a search firm. We had no idea that they were tied to Atkinson whatsoever. So, it's just like you really have to start watching things. You have to start watching contracts. You have to start, just really looking into stuff because I just can't tell you how good of a search, we had with Hazard Young and Hedieh and the Makai Ali, who, was our consultant. He's a Compton School Board member. He's done amazing things in Compton. But then too, on the side, asking him questions like, how do you help your English learners? What do you do here? What do you do here? What's Compton done, to help this? And, they've done a lot of innovative things. But not only that too, is he actually listened to our whole board and said, I am going to go steal somebody, for you that will fit, because he says, we want somebody who's not just sitting around.
Yep.
We want to go find somebody. And so look who we found. So how can we not just brag about this?
Yep.
But then also too, the attorney, I texted him about something the other day, just a quick question. He was in Scotland, texted me back, and I am in Scotland, but here's the answer. And so this is kind of, and it's not anything too, we're not doing anything behind the back. We're just asking questions. When I see things on TV and I go, I don't even know if that's legal or how are they doing that? Call, hey, how are they doing that? Oh, well, it is
really
they
not
are
supposed
or
to.
They're not or whatever, or this is how it was done. So.
One last question, unless you'll have the ability to share with anything that you want, but I just want to ask one more thing about the cost of sports in our district. Is there anything that can be done? I know there's all kinds of different things that have to happen. Some of the coaches are only paid by boosters. They're not paid by the school district. So there has to be, if you want a good coach, you have to pay for a good coach. And so that brings, in cheerleading, it's astronomical, the amount of money. And we have 2 girls in cheerleading. And then I have my son who's in lacrosse, and the costs are lower, but still it's a lot of money. And I know there's still people that would want their kids to play sports, but they simply can't because they can't afford it. There's other things that are, obviously more important, but sports is, I think, an important part of high school for many kids. Yep. It's a distraction away from some things. Yes. It teaches camaraderie. It teaches, the ability to work through difficulty. There's so many good things that come out of sports. How can we address this? Is anybody addressing it? What do you think?
Yeah. I've been asking since 2020
wow.
to address this.
Yeah.
And so I haven't had actually any attention to this until May of 2023 when Dr. Turnus came on. So I will say that it is being looked at. We look at ASB, we're looking hard at like ASB, and we're looking hard at some of like, how money is, being handled at the high school sites. And, at the district level, there are stipends. And so they do come from the district. And usually what happens is like the money for the sports camp and stuff, they funnel over the district, and then they end up coming back to the coaches. Like for instance, we have stipends for 2 water polo coaches for men's water polo, but they wanted to bring on a third. So the third came from the booster. Do we have the money to do it? Yes. So we paid the third coach through the boosters. So there are things like that happening. But what we really said is like, what's kind of shocking is that, football ticket sales, they go straight into ASB at all 4 campuses. And so a lot of these ticket sales, for these certain sports, they're not being funneled back into the sports programs. So that's kind of things that we've been looking at. And
then is it the ASB teacher who then decides what's going to happen with the money? And she's going to buy streamers for the next dance?
Quite possibly. And nothing on them.
Yep.
It's just, this is the system that we've been in, and this is kind of, and so.
Shouldn't the sports get a portion of that?
Well, that's what I thought too. I know that like officials, they usually, it's like $123 for like the white hat and like $121 for the others. And I asked that because my dad's an official. So he gave me the prices.
Yeah.
And so, so you have 4 of those. So that's, maybe $500 to $600 a game. And then usually your chain crew is volunteers. But then you also too, if you looked at like, kind of the things that we've just been looking at is like people working the door sometimes are teachers, and they're like working the gates, and there's teachers, and they're receiving stipends from the school district. And so my question is like, have we ever like sat down and actually said, hey, we have we have parents who are willing to work the gate and collect tickets. We have freshman kids or JV kids who are willing to like work the gate,
right?
Like, to take away some of that, to help with the funding. And so I think a deep dive really just needs to be looked into like the money, like where it goes for sports, for the arts as well. I mean, we don't know how many, like there's a lot, like sometimes, I don't know if basketball's told me that sometimes ASB takes their ticket sales. And, I think it's for CIF events that ASB gets the ticket sales. And I think if you run a tournament on your own, that's how you make your own money, is from how I'm understanding it. But is that the right way? Is it efficient? And should we be budgeting differently? And another thing too, that I think is pretty ridiculous, and I've said it last year, but I don't think I've said it since May 2023, that, we have these kids buy these ASB cards, and we give these inter-district transfers to everybody, and so you might be at this school, but then you want to go do manufacturing here, and all your friends went to Yorba High School. So to go watch your friends play in the Yorba High School football game, if you're at Esperanza or El Dorado, you have to go to the gate and you have to pay $5 with your ASB card to get in. Why are we charging these kids in our school district any money for these home games?
Right.
You should be, that builds camaraderie. Yep. That is like how you bring people in. If a kid knows on a Friday night, they don't have to spend any money, and they can just go in and hang out with their buddies and watch a basketball game. Yep. That's where they're going to be. And
not spend it on some type of game camp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so that's it. Like even my son last week, he's, I have a card, because it's school board, it's really kind of a cool card. It gets you in all, the athletic events and stuff. So you can go, just to see many events. And he says, can you go with me at the game and use your card to get me in? I said, well, why, and so he thought he had read it wrong. He thought it was now $5 with an ASB card home games. He just read it wrong. But, I was sitting there thinking it was $5 from an opposing school. So if Yorba Linda is the home team and Esperanza is the away team, all those Esperanza students have to pay that $5. And like, does that make sense? No. You paid ASB, let them into the games, because that creates camaraderie, that's school pride. And is it, like some of our, students, maybe they can't afford to go to a football game, every Friday night or weeknight games.
I mean, it's so tight. I mean, especially now, it's just so difficult.
Yeah.
I have 6 kids, and we go to McDonald's and it's $50, $70.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? This is supposed to be cheap.
Exactly.
And it's not.
Yeah. Taco Bell, I used to be able to, I guess probably still go to Taco Bell and spend like $3 on myself. But if you go with like 3 boys, it's like $40. And if
yes.
How am I spending $40 at Taco Bell?
When did that happen?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that we didn't discuss that needs to be discussed?
No, I just, I think that there's, a lot going on. I think the tone of the school district, at least from the people that I've heard, there's some people at the school board, oh my gosh, people are leaving and but I mean, we've had our preschool, we have this preschools opening up everywhere, and we've totally, filled, all of them. We have staff.
Oh, wow.
We have all kinds of innovative stuff. We have some things like I think that are in the works that are really going to blow people's minds, for like the future and stuff like that. So I feel like we're on a really, really good track. And I feel like the staff feels like we're on a good track. I feel like parents feel that way. The principals are feeling that way. There's teachers who have come up and said, oh my gosh, like this is the real deal. Like we're really doing good things.
For the last few weeks, I've been, driving around because the kids have been going to some camps and that kind of stuff in different schools that I've never been to before. And every time I went somewhere, they were cleaning something up or painting something or installing something new. So it's really great to see all the activity in the different schools.
Yeah. I mean, cool. It's good. And so I think some people, they might be upset, the changes and stuff like that, but I just hope that people step back and like keep an open mind, see how this school year is going to go. And I don't think it's going to be the death and destruction that they're visualizing. I think that there's going to be so many good things happening. And I'm just like, I don't think I've ever been excited for school, to start like the last couple of years. It's like, because like nothing was changing. It was just the same old. But like this year, I'm actually like excited.
Me too.
I'm super excited. I'm really excited for these kids. I want to get them back up to their grade level. It's just going to be an exciting time. I
tell everybody I talk to, the parents that are at lacrosse when I go there, and just tell them, like, oh, you just wait. Things are going to be good. Now, initially I would say, give it a couple of years and you'll start to see the difference. But I go, wait a minute. I don't even think you need to wait. This year we're already going to see some great changes.
Well, we've already seen it. Yep. I mean, who would have thought that we would have accomplished this in 3 or 4 months?
Not me.
I mean, I knew when in the interview, he did something funky with his tie. And I kind of looked like, oh, this guy's a real deal. It's just this movement he made with his tie. And he says, I can do it. And I was like, okay, we're on. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I've already talked to him more than I talked to any of the other superintendents put together, combined. And
he's very, very, he's very, very student oriented, but he's also wants the parents, no matter what opinion you have, he wants to hear you.
Good.
And so that's what's very very special about what our district is moving towards.
It's amazing. Great. Well, thank you for coming by.
Of course.
And being in studio.
Yes.
I really appreciate it very much. And those of you, again, share this out to people that want to know what's happening in our school district. I think people are going to be extremely happy. And so please do that. And we'll see you at the next one. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye.